this is the cemetery at Gdańsk Zaspa. It's a cemetery which in my opinion is the one of the most important cemeteries of the Second World War. Obviously that's a personal opinion, which I'm now going to try and justify as I walk around, but just to show you what's here. So this is to the memory of more than 20,000 unknown victims of Nazism who lie in this cemetery. So there's 20,000 who haven't got names any longer, but there's plenty of people here who still have names. Now this cemetery itself dates to the 19th century. What it was before, it was for poor people, the paupers' graves here. They were for people who couldn't afford to have a proper burial, or people whose families didn't want to pay for a proper burial, or people who didn't have families to pay for what may be termed a proper burial in a church somewhere with a funeral. This is for people who they just slung them in the ground, so to speak. Anyway, in the First World War, this was used for POWs. People taking POWs do tend to die because they've been in battle, often they're wounded, and so that the casualty rate is somewhat higher than you get with other people. Also, there's shortages of food as well, as happened in Germany in 1918. However, this cemetery was relaid out after the Second World War, the object of which is to house, maybe that's not the right word, to commemorate, also maybe not entirely the right word, but it's the cemetery for the people from the this region, Pomerania, Gdańsk region, who died during the war. And so first of all, we've got the first victims of the war, because the war to a large extent did start here, and the victims from the concentration camp at Stutthof, who were brought here at the beginning of the existence of the camp, until the camp actually built its own crematorium. So you can see here, for example, this gentleman here, Stanisław Gottsowski, died in Stutthof. Now we've also people who were victims of the Nazis but actually survived the war. This gentleman here, Professor Banas Pervin, who was born in 1890, died in 1952. So there are, for example, people who whose names may not be known, or people who actually survived the camps. And now here we have somebody who was a railway worker, who was shot in Szymankowo in Simonsdorf on the 1st of September 1939. So this sort of gives an idea. However, there's also Soviet people from the Red Army here. There's also Germans here who were the victims of the Nazi regime. Now, what I wanted to do above all also is to sort of show some of the early victims of the war. The war which started on the 1st of September with the German invasion of Poland, and the excuse that Hitler used was that he wanted to resolve the question of the Polish corridor, something of course which the then Polish government very well knew was likely to happen, but because of the admiration it had for the Nazi regime, it effectively abandoned the people of Poland to their fate. More on that in a video which I'm going to do relating to the responsibility of the pre-war Polish dictatorship without a dictator, the pre-war Polish government, to its responsibility for the World War II and the occupation. Of course, I'm not blaming the Polish government for World War II. That was started by the Nazis, but it only managed to do that because of the support and cooperation it got from other countries. Anyway, so I'll deal with that though in another video. What we've got here are the victims of the first day. Anyway, so here we have people who were defenders of the Polish post office. Now, in 1925, three Polish post offices were opened in the free city of Gdańsk, and in one of them, the main post office, a really big building. I've done a separate film on that, and this was actually defended by a small group of post officials with two sort of reserve military people there as assistant, and they held out for incredible amount of time against thousands of attacking Nazis. And this is the again, I've done this on another film, so you can see that. I've also got newsreel footage of it. And then the authorities had the goal to put these people on trial, and they were judicially murdered. So some of them died during the attack. So you've got here Leon Marszałkowski, who died, so you see, 1st of September 1939. You have Konrad Górski, who was he was head of the defense of the post office. He was the first one to die, one of the very first military casualties of World War II. Might be slightly exaggerating there, but he died within the first hours of the war, 1st of September 1939. Now, as far as these people were concerned, postal workers, letter carriers, mail sorting people, and they, I mean, quite incredible defense that they put up. I mean, as far as thermoply or something like that's concerned, it's amazing. And now the objective of the exercise, as far as the post office, why do you defend the post office? What's the point? Well, the idea was it was surrounded by a largely hostile, potentially hostile population who could riot or something like that. So they thought that, yeah, okay, well then we'll have a potential defense. Never thought they were going to get attacked by this SS Heimwehr, Danzig, and Danzig police and all the rest of it. The idea was they're supposed to hang out for 6 hours, which in itself is pretty absurd. The thing was, they were abandoned. They were abandoned to their fate. The Polish army was supposed to reach them within 6 hours. There was no chance of that. The Polish army did inform the defenders of the Westerplatte that they couldn't get there, but they never informed the people at the post office. Here we have this little girl. She was the daughter of the caretaker, and she died of her wounds on the 20th of certainly the 20th of October 1939. I thought it was the 20th of September. I might be wrong on that one though. There you go, 10 years old. So you can see what they actually did. We've got the where they were born and what the job they did. Now, the place where the war actually started, Szymankowo, and here we've got the victims of what happened there, where railway workers foiled an attempt by terrorists German terrorists to take the bridges at Tczew. Very important strategic objective, and thanks to what they did, foiling the attack, but in revenge they were murdered by the Nazis, and these people are the victims. And here we have the very first victim of the Second World War, Eugeniusz Jasinski. So he died 2 in the morning. That's to say 2 hours and 45 minutes before the guns opened fire on the Westerplatte. You can see where we are. It's in a housing area, socialist housing. These are victims of the camp at Stutthof. In 1993 I went to Stutthof on a daily basis. I was doing research there. So from that, it's a very good archive. And we see here from some other camps, a camp here at Noviport, which is over the river from Westerplatte. There were people from Gdańsk who were shot en masse. They were also lying here. So this gentleman here, Jan Michon, 51 years old, he was a defender of the Polish post office in Gdańsk. Now I'm using the words Gdańsk and Danzig here in the pre-war period interchangeably. Obviously 96% of the population spoke the German speakers, and so that it seems in that way you normally say Freistadt Danzig in English. And here we have more of the defenders of the Polish post office. Now they were executed, as if you like. They were shot afterwards. It was judicial murder, but they were put on trial by the Wehrmacht, not SS. There was a certain legal aspect to it, and the person who they were allowed an appeal at the end for clemency. This went to Brautisch, and he refused. So he's the head of the Wehrmacht at the time, and the two who signed the death sentences were both involved in the plot against Hitler. And one of the names you'll probably know, but I want to keep that back for the film I actually do on this subject. And indeed, I've got another one planned on the resistance to the Nazis. Now, some of these names may not seem particularly Polish, such as this one here, Teschmer, but these are Kashubian names. They're not German, but they're Kashubian. Now, in the pre-war censuses, and indeed I've got an atlas from Germany from the pre-war period, and it sort of identifies Kashubians as not being Polish, as a separate, completely separate identity. And but I don't think there's any plans to make Kashubia independent or something like that. It's rare to hear it. I've never actually heard it spoken, except it by people who are just demonstrating it. But I have friends who've said they've been in shops in places where it has been spoken. So, for example, you can get TH. There's an example: Konrad, Grota, TH together, which you don't get in Polish. That's a Kashubian name. Right, so I hope you find this of interest, and if so, you might want to subscribe to my account, my channel. I've got lots more history films. I'll be doing a lot more from this region on the Second World War, beginning of the Second World War. I've planned quite a lot of things, and so I hope that is of interest.